Okay, wonderful. Well, hello, welcome to DevOps Automation in action. This is a very hands-on style of session. So we're going to see lots of demos, lots of content here. I'm here with my partner in crime, Dan Capon. Dan, do you want to just say hello?
Good afternoon.
Okay, so a man of many words. Let's hope he finds some more.
Oh, there'll be many more later.
Well, indeed. Okay.
And Chris, just real quick, just a quick reminder to the attendees, throw questions in the chat. Make sure and take your poll at the tail end. Also, if as Chris already mentioned, this is going to be a hands-on demo of what we just saw from an overview. So wrapping up the sessions for day 2 of TechCon 2025. And with that, Chris, let's just go ahead and dive in.
Fantastic. Thanks, Andy. So, okay, let's talk then about what it is we're going to be doing. We have, as you've seen in the previous session, or perhaps you didn't see in the previous session, we're looking at IBM's DevOps Automation platform. This is all about how do we get ideas and content from customers and from our own backlog into production quickly, efficiently, and with a minimum of fuss. And so, we have a very simple layout of what happens in order to move from concept through to production. You'll see here, this is what we call our golden thread for our demonstration. You can see we start off over on the left-hand side here by gathering ideas. We use those ideas to feed our planning process. We obviously design, we write code, we build the code, then we take that, we test it, we deploy it. We'll probably go around a few loops here, and then we get to a point where we have something that's really good, and we want to get it out into customers, and that's where we release it. And we want to look at, okay, well, did this meet the goal, meet the objective of what it was that we set out to do? So when we pulled an idea in from our backlog, presumably we had some sort of business metric that we wanted to track that said, hey, if we do this, it's going to increase, one or more of our KPIs by a certain percentage point. How do we understand and manage and track some of that? So between Dan and myself, we're going to go backwards and forwards and talk a little bit about all the different parts and pieces that make up how this works. I'm going to kick off by doing a very sort of high-level run through of this whole process, and then Dan's going to dive in some more depth in some of these other areas. So as Andy said, if you have questions or comments, please leave them in the chat. If I'm speaking, Dan will be responding. If Dan's speaking, I will respond. So with that said, let's go and look at the platform. I'm going to go ahead and close that down. So here we are. This is our login screen for the DevOps Automation platform. I'm going to go ahead and log myself in, and just need to authenticate over that. There we go. And now you'll see the way that the DevOps Automation platform is structured is broken into a number of sort of tiles and capabilities that are represented by those tiles. And you can see we start off talking about planning. We want to do some source control. We need to deploy our application, test our application, and then measure and release. It's kind of those activities to see, how is this doing in production, and what does it actually look like? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by going into plan and looking at some of the work items that we already have and starting to build out from there. So I'm going to go into my planning capability in the platform here, and actually, a little bit of background that I nearly missed. The demo. Let's talk just for a second about the demo application. Our demo application is a pizza application. It's all about ordering pizzas, because who doesn't love a pizza? It's very, very simple. Okay, we're not going to spend lots of time looking at in depth in the demo about the application. The application itself is here, as you can see. This is super simple. We don't, to a certain extent, I'm not bothered about this application. This is just for illustrative purposes, okay? But you can see here I have the ability to order pizzas. I can add pizzas to my shopping cart. and I can buy those pizzas, right? Very, very simple, very, very straightforward. So obviously, one of the things I want to do is I want to improve that pizza application. Obviously, it's not particularly shiny and interesting. So I'm going to go and let's look to begin with at the work that is currently assigned to to improve the pizza process, right? And so I have some work that's assigned to me. There is obviously a lot more work that is assigned to the whole team here. So you can see all the different items in my backlog, things that have been submitted but haven't been groomed into the backlog yet, things that teams are working on, things that people have already delivered. So there's a number of different states here, and you can manage and configure these states however you wish. Right? Very, very simple and straightforward to create different ways of slicing and dicing the work that you're interested in doing here. So for us, we want to expand our pizza business, and in order to do that, I want to I'm going to put some more work on the team's plate to do that. Plate. There's a pizza pun there. Right. So I'm going to go, and I have on a different screen, I have some prompts that I'm going to use for our AI solution over here. And in order to help me generate, some suggestions here, you can see I've got this little AI assistant down in the bottom left corner here. I'm just going to ask it to help me grow my business a little bit. In this case, specifically, we want to focus in on different types of pizza, how we might cater to different dietary requirements, and things like that. Now, this is an interface effectively to our AI providers, Watson X. You can, it has full RAG capabilities here, so I can upload additional files with additional requirements and other bits and pieces. But again, for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to keep it really super simple prompt. I want to ask it to generate me some action items, break this down into some solutions that I might want to care about here. So you'll see, I asked it, I want to add more pizza types, include, thinking about special dietary requirements. And so it said, hey, look, here's some things you might want to focus on. Compile a list of dietary restrictions and then offer those, update the menu to include more pizza types. So this is great. So I'm going to break this down. I'm going to say, well, actually, that updating the menu to include new pizza types is absolutely something I want to do. So I'm going to create a new work item for this in my pizza project, and we'll call this a story. So I'll go ahead and create a record for this. So you can see here I've got my my pizza 49 item here. So if I go and look in the work items board here, we'll see down here we have this ungroomed pizza number 49 here that's breaking the saying okay, update the pizza types. Now everywhere within our planning capability that you have the ability to edit content, you can also leverage our AI solution. So here, for example, I'm just going to put that item in here, and I'm going to ask it to elaborate on this in a professional manner. And so here it'll say, okay, well, here's some things that you might want to do. So here's your updates to your pizza menu. So I'm going to accept that text. I'm going to, one of the things I found with AI is it's very chirpy. I'm going to just pull out the certainlys and that sort of thing. But here's some things that we might want to do to improve our menu. I'm going to go ahead and save that. So you'll see that very, very quickly I've gone from not having a work item to work on, to having created this and elaborating on it using AI without me having to go through lots of different steps and processes and things like that. So this gives me my my work item, my top level work item here. Now this was pizza number 49. This is great. And so I'm going to put this, I want to do the work for this. So I'm going to put this into my my active panel over here. And one of the things that this has done is it's actually updated my value stream behind the scenes. So as we're working here, we're also capturing information across all of the different parts of our business, right? The work that I'm doing as a developer is one piece of the puzzle. We also have things like, from our ITSM tools, provisioning cloud infrastructure, or onboarding new engineers, and lots of different things that can be happening around the business. And I'm going to quickly nip over to our measure capability here, where we can see the value stream in action. So I just wait for that to load up. Here we go. So here's our simple pizza app, and if I click into here, we'll see, I've got my my application here. In fact, here's pizza number 49. Here, if I click on this, we'll see this is one that I just created. It's actually unassigned. I forgot to assign it to myself. But here's all the detail around this. So this dots view shows me all the information that is happening in my business, not just related to the work that I'm doing, as I said, but across all the other areas of the business. So, if I look at some of these other areas here, so we see, establishing a payment gateway. We've got some work over here that was changing the button color, some stuff that have been pushed out to production around implementing reports. So there's lots of different things that have been done all through the life cycle of this project. And as we do more, we're going to be pulling more and more of that in. So I've created my work item. I've said that this is the thing that I'm going to be working on. So let's go and make a quick change to implement this, right? So first of all, I can go into control, and control is our Git hosting service baked into the platform. And so we can see here we have our pizza application, and I can simply click from here to open this up in my editor of choice, for example, VS Code, and that will clone it locally so I can start working with it. I've actually already cloned it locally, so I'm just going to start from my running VS Code instance over here. Now, as I said, this application is super simple. It's really just, it's 2 files, 3 if you count the Docker file. There's a Java piece that just grabs the index HTML and spits it out over a TCP port, and then the index file itself that just renders the basic page here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leverage our AI assistant here, and I'm going to ask it to help me again to build, to update my menu. So I'm going to say I'd like to update the menu to include different dietary requirements, and I'm just going to give it a little hint as to where to look to do that. I'm going to say, hey, I'd like you to look at the index file to do that. And so now we're getting Watson X, the code assistant piece here, to help us elaborate this. And you can see previous examples when I was testing to do this demo earlier on, where we were getting different suggestions of how you might implement different option boxes and things like that for the in order to add more pizza types. Okay, so this is taking a second. Just give it a moment to complete. Sometimes these things go quick, sometimes these things go slow, but it'll come back and suggest a couple of different potential options for me, and then I can accept those and add them into my my application here. I'm going to try not to leave too much dead air, and if this doesn't return in time, I will just continue on as it stands. Actually, one thing I did need to do is I didn't just need to quickly check. Yeah, I'm on the feature branch, so that's fine. Okay, like all the best demos, it's taking a little bit of time to do something that was working perfectly fine, not 30 minutes before the session started. So I'm just going to give it 10 more seconds to finish. If it doesn't come back, then we'll just proceed with the previous example. Okay, So we can see, previously I asked essentially the same question for the keto diet, and we see we got back an example of what that might do, and it's really easy to leverage that. You simply just click the little button that says Insert at Cursor, and it will go and it will insert that example at the cursor there, and so that's added in. In fact, now I've got lots of keto. That's fine. That's not the end of the world, right? So what I want to do in order to put this into control is I'm going to add a quick commit comment here. I'm going to reference the issue that it came from, and I'll say adding a new pizza type. Okay. Oh, I didn't save that, so I didn't notice that there's a change. There we go. So now I've got this this change. I will commit that and synchronize the changes up to control there. So we're pushing this change into control. There we go. And now I need to create a pull request to merge this from my feature branch into my main line. So I've created this feature branch. Now, every interaction that I'm making here is something that is fundamentally trackable, right? So what I can do is I can go back to my my value stream view here, and what we'll see, I just need to refresh it. What we'll see is that dot has now moved over to the in review stage. So as lifecycle states change on the work items, whether that's in the planning solution, whether that's in the source code solution, whether that's in your deployment automation or your testing solution, all of these things are coming back to Velocity, to our value stream view, and we're capturing all of that information. So for example, if I go back into control here and merge this this request, I'm just going to tidy this this message up a little bit. Yeah, that, and then merge it. Okay, so that's merged that change back into the main branch, and so in doing that, we now have, and again, I'm just going to need to refresh this. There we go. There's a polling interval, and I just want to move this on quickly. So now we can see that it's moved from review to merged, and it's ready for deployment. Okay, so now let's talk about how we deploy this change. So I'm going to go to my deploy capability here, and we can see we've got our dashboard of deployments. Some of them failed, some of them are successful. We get a nice overview of what has happened when in terms of deployments. And if I go to my applications view here, again, we can see here's my pizza application. I'll look at the history of these executions, and I can see here, for example, we installed the pizza application, and these are all the steps that we did in order to install that application. So cleaning it up, cloning the repo, running our security tests, cleaning up any Docker images, etc., etc. Okay, so there's a whole process that is behind this to help me manage my application deployment. Now, Dan's going to go into this in a bit more detail, but I want to look at it really, really quickly here. If I look at this process for the pizza application in particular, here's the flow chart for that deployment process, where, as you can see, clean up the file system, clone the repo, run our tests. Notice here there's a failure path that says, hey, if we don't pass these tests, let's go roll this back, right? So we have a whole rollback option here that says at any point I can bail out and push the old solution back. Okay, so all of that roll forward, roll back stuff is programmatically captured so that we can manage it as we move forwards. So there's a lot of things going on here that are related to making this deployment really, really simple and really, really straightforward. Now, talked about these tests. What are these tests? Let's go look at our test solution in the DevOps Automation platform. And here is our test solution. Now, I'm going to go into my pizza app process here. Here we have an overview of all of the work that is being done. So we can see all the different types of tests that are going on here. For example, our performance tests, our JUnit tests, etc. If I come down and look at the different types of tests here, I've got a test that says I want to order a pizza. And you can see in here, we have what we call smart shots. These are effectively screenshots of the application under test that are interactable. So for example, I can click on where it says margarita here, and I can right click on here and I can say I want to create a verification point for this. So I want to verify that the page includes margarita as a pizza option, and in fact it should be the first option in the list. And I can do that. I could then say, for example, I want to verify pepperoni or chicken or what have you. All of these screenshots are completely interactable. So as we come down here, we're seeing, we're clicking add to cart, then we add a different pizza to the cart, then we click the buy button, which is down here. I could then say, well, actually, I want to verify that that we have 2 margarita pizzas in this, and so I've added an extra verification point in here. Really, really simple and straightforward to work with and capture these these tests. Once I've captured these tests, obviously I can run them against my application under test. Just click on the little run button here. I've made a few changes, so I'm not going to try and run this just in case. But the other thing we want to think about is how do we drive data into these tests, right? So, very typically you'd want to test what happens if I buy more than one pizza, or if I buy different types of pizzas in different combinations and things like that, right? We've all seen some of the jokes about, testers trying all these different combinations, then somebody comes in and asks for something completely different, and it all goes very wrong. But you still have to try and validate those scenarios. So how do we do that? We do that using our data generation mechanism. So here I have, for example, different ways of interacting with data in the platform. So we can bring in static data in a CSV file, for example. So here we can see here's a collection of people's information. Or we have a data generator capability that will generate me dynamic data on the fly every time I want it. And this is unique data each time. So here we've got our layout that says, I want a first name, a last name, a title, etc. And you'll see we've got this generator column here, where we have the name generator for each of these 3. And that's because we're configuring the name generator differently for each of these 3 fields. So for example, here, we're saying, actually, for this field, I only want the title. I'm not going to generate the first name or the last name. Over here, obviously, this is the surname or the last name, so I'm just going to generate the last name. So for example, if I come down here, we've got the phone number here, and I can generate different countries, different types of country. I can say, well, actually, I want it in a different format. And then when I come and press preview here, we'll see we've now changed the format of this. So it's showing me the country code. So it's prefixing it with that +44 for UK phone numbers. And you have distribution control at this point as well. So you can say, well, actually, for this phone number, I might want multiple different configurations. I want some UK phone numbers. I want some US phone numbers. And then we're gonna do this. I want most of these phone numbers to be US, so I'll make these 80%, which means that needs to be 20%. And so now, if I regenerate this, we'll see we've got a lot more of the US prefix here than we have of the UK prefix, because we're breaking this down percentage-wise for our phone numbers. So you've got a lot of control over this. And then you can bring these together in what we call a schema view, where I can link together. So for example, here, when we're registering a new customer, these customers might have different pizza preferences, and I want to be able to market to them based on their pizza preference. So here we're creating a simulation where we're saying, hey, when we register these customers, we're going to register them with a particular pizza preference. So if I go and I look at this preview here, we'll see now we've got this new preference here: Texas barbecue pizza, vegetarian pizzas, margarita pizzas. This is now being added on to those existing preferences for this customer. So we're just connecting these things together. And the great thing here is I can export this out to a CSV file or to an Excel sheet, whatever it is that I need to be able to work with from my end, or I can push this into a database. So I can say, well, I would just want to generate this data directly into my application database or my testing database, whatever it might be. So really, really powerful way of being able to create the types of data that you need dynamically. So when I go and I say I want to run a test related to this, let's say for example I want to run a performance test and I need unique users for that performance test. Gone are the days where I need to go and ask a business analyst for 100,000 records in a file somewhere. I can simply come in here. I can say, hey, generate me 100,000 records, please, and it will do that for me on the fly, so that my performance test is ready to go and guaranteed unique every time I run it. So really, really powerful capability that helps drive the different types of testing that teams typically have. Now, this test capability also includes some of our great capability around things like service virtualization, so you can simulate different applications and application behaviors. In fact, we can see here I've got a couple of running virtual services, and you can see the configuration for these. They're running in control is where the Git repository that hosts these is, and these are managing things like our account histories. And you can see the different configuration for this, different types of behavior that might be associated with this, lots of different things and configuration that you can apply to your simulations, so that when you're again running your tests or building your application, you can have these virtual services available to support your engineers during their development and delivery process. Lastly, we have our security tests and in fact, all of our tests. So I'm just looking at my security tests here, where we can see, hey, we've got all of these different types of tests that have been run. I'm going to look at my security test here, and I can look at my security report. And here we can see, hey, look, there's some security problems that we've identified. We've got an insecure use of SQL in one of our Perl scripts in our project, so we need to go and look at that. That's something I can do. One of the things you might call out is you might say, well, hang on a minute, Chris, there's a high security vulnerability in here, and yet this is still passed. One of the controls that we give to you as end users is you can actually set allowances around this, tolerances for this. So in my particular case, my situation is set up where I can tolerate having 5 high failures. If there were 6 failures in here, that would fail the test, right? So we're setting this up so that there's actually a level of tolerance around these reports. But last thing, actually, before I pass back to Dan, is I want to talk a little bit about machine learning in here. So we talked a bit about performance testing. One of the other things that we have in here is we have a machine learning model that runs automatically against performance test results, and will highlight to you when you have data sets that might exhibit particular common problems. I think we've got 6 common patterns that we provide out of the box. And here you can see, where we've identified that there's a reasonably high probability that this data set exhibits the response time lockstep pattern. And that pattern is simply saying, as we add more users, we're consuming more system resources. Now, obviously, as you add more users, you're going to consume some more system resources. But at this point, we're saying, well, if you add 10% more users, you're going to consume 10% more resources. That's a problem, right? You want to be able to add 10% more users and consume, ideally something like 0.5% more system resources, right? So if you're lockstep on this, it means if I double my users, I'm doubling my system resources, and that's going to cause me significant problems. So these machine learning solutions run automatically against all of my performance test results and start to highlight for me these sorts of problems. Now, obviously, I can go into this data in further detail. I can slice it and dice it in all sorts of other ways. But this is just a quick and easy way to point me in the right direction as a performance engineer, so I can see where this is. But I think that brings me to the end of the overview of what we're going to do here. I think, Dan, you are going to go into a bit more depth on some of the deployment and VSM elements. Is that correct?
Exactly. Thank you, Chris. Okay. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now, and let's actually go over and talk about the deploy and the measure capabilities of the platform. Just quick overview. When we look at our deployment capability, we're using agents to do this work. So whether we have physical or virtual machines, we have agents installed on them. We have the concept of a relay agent. So if you have systems that are beyond a firewall, we don't want to open up a firewall for every single system. So we just have the relay agent on the other side of the firewall, and he takes care of talking through to those other agents. And when we're dealing with some platforms, such as some of our cloud platforms, we can have what we call a proxy agent who does the work for me. So he'll do the various tasks to do this. So we have customers that have thousands and thousands of agents, like in excess of 20,000 agents. So all these out, managing all their machines out there, and it's simply running deployments. And this allows us to really do many, many deployments at the same time. So if we dive into deploy a little bit here, let's take a look at one of our applications here. So I've got a little deployment here for a thing called Mod Resorts, and I have my various environments here. And the idea behind deploy is we'll use the same process for each one of my environments, so that we're doing this over and over again. So by the time we get up to production, we've done this deployment many, many times, and we know exactly what works, what doesn't work, and we've fine-tuned that so that we're much more successful delivering into production with an automated process than having people manually do tasks and so on. So let's take a look at some of the ways that we can do deployments. So in my dev environment here, I have what we call a component. If I click on that component, you can see the various versions of it. So the latest version actually has some failures in it, and we're going to deal with that in a bit. Some of the earlier versions does have some passes in that, so we're going to look at how these work. The current one is a failure. So again, if we go into that and expand that, you'll see down here that is marked as fail. And if we click on my usage here, you can see the history of which versions were sitting in which environments. Again, this environment was created just recently, but if this was created a long time ago, you would see the entire history of how these things have been in different environments, which version, and so on. So let's go back here and let's run a deployment. So in my dev environment here, I'll say request process. I'll pick my Liberty container. Down here, you'll see that we actually have properties to our deployment. So I'm deploying it to dev, and then I can actually adjust some properties as it goes. So again, not only do we have properties at the application level, the component level, the environment level, but each individual deployment can actually have things turn on and off accordingly. So lots of different deep controls as to how we do things. So let's pick the version that we want to put into my dev environment. And I'll just say, show me one that's, give me one that has my functional test passing. So our current inventory is this version here. We saw that was failure. So let's deploy a working version into my environment. I can also schedule this. Down here I have a schedule, and I can do recurrence patterns, so I can have it automatically schedule on a regular basis. But for now, we're just going to submit that in. If I go back to my dashboard, down at the bottom here, you can see all current activity. So I could drill into that one, so view my request, and as the various processes run, it'll expand farther in. And Chris showed a little diagram before of that process. So these processes, and I can actually just drill into the process here a minute. Oh, sorry. Let me look at one of these. Oh, no, I don't want to do that one. Sorry. if I go to this process here, let's do this one. So we make it very easy to build these processes in this graphical editor. I just have all these plugins here, and we have over 200 plugins for deploy, interacting with all different technologies out there. So you don't have to write scripts to do all this stuff. We've got some built-in pieces so that if I'm looking at middleware, say it's Instana, so I just want to add a release marker. You don't have to know how to do that. You just drag this onto your process here and fill in the parameters, and it will do that for you. So again, making it very easy to build these processes out. We'll go back to see how my process is running here, and it's done. So we've now deployed that version into my dev environment. And if I expand it out here, you'll see that it's now green, and I can see that I have that version put in my dev environment now. Let's look at another deployment here. I'm going to go to my integration environment, and I'll say, let's request a process. And this one, what we have is, we call it our canary deployment. So what I'm going to do here, I got 3 servers, and I'm going to just deploy it to one of those servers. So I just want to bring that new version up, make sure it looks good. We have an older version here, but again, let's select that by status. And once again, we could pick that one with the past functional tests, and that is a slightly different version. And I'm going to say submit here. I'm good with that. So this is going to go off and replace the application just in one of my servers. I'll have 2 servers with the old version and 1 server with the new version. Again, we can play with those, see how they work, make sure it's working okay, and go from there. While that's running, I don't really have to show much in here. I can go back to my applications, and I'm going to do a production process. And for this one, I'm going to do a blue-green deployment. The idea here is I'm going to pick that version that's good. And so it's going to change my load balancer. It's going to deploy the application out to one side, wait for, in this case, it's going to be a manual step. So somebody will actually go in and say, yeah, I'm happy with that. Go ahead to the green side. And I can, again, expand these out to see it's switching my load balancer over, and so on and so on. So again, I am running tests in here. As once we get down to the deployment into the blue side, you'll see tests being executed. And I could base my my manual task on those tests if I want. But I'm actually going to have a person actually say, yes, I'm ready to go here. And then I can actually go here and I can say, go ahead and approve, and I'll submit. And now we'll continue on to that blue side. So again, doing the various work that needs to be done, and switching that other environment over. I'm going to show you one other example of deployments, and let's go back to my application here. And in this case, I'm going to do it. Oh, actually, sorry, I want to show you one other thing here. One of my deployments there did have Instana marker go in, and that's the one right here. So when I deploy to my integration environment, there is a release marker that shows up in Instana. And this, again, helps us see what's going on. I see a notification up here even. Make sure that all this data I'm getting in Instana, nothing drastically changes. Again, looking at that release marker, it looks like everything's smooth from this point forward. So we didn't actually impact anything, it looks like. So the last type of deployment I want to do is a Argo CD deployment. So first, looking at my application here, I'm running on 2 pods. And what I want to do is I just want to make a change to my deployment YAML here. So let's go into my file here. So I have 2 replicas there, and I'm just going to make an edit here and say, let's ramp this up to 3. And I'll commit those changes. Okay. This will a webhook over here on on Git will change things over here, and we'll see this happen in a minute. But if we go over to deploy here, and again, look at my dashboard, I should see in a minute, I will see some activity happening here, unless it's already happened. I don't know if it happens that quick. No, it hasn't happened yet. There it is. So it's now changing that number of pods from 2 to 3. Once this is done, we should see the change happen over here on Argo CD. Not there yet. There is a slight delay. I think we put a little 20-second delay in there just to allow me to talk a little bit through this. But again, it's got the task to do here, and it's going to make that change for me. One more refresh here. We should see that change relatively soon. And again, I can, if I want, I can just say view request, and I can dive into it and see exactly at what point it is. Okay, it's still in the state here. Oh, it's going to run some tests against it as well. And as we had in the pizza app, we also have a rollback option. So again, when we deploy an application out, let's run some tests against it, make sure it's behaving as we expect it to. In this case, my functional test passed. We're adding a status to the version. Remember, before we were picking versions based on status. So we've applied a functional test pass status to this. And now I think we should see that we are up to 3 pods running here. So again, lots of different environments we can deploy to. I also have a mainframe deployment here. So deploy works really well with our distributed hardware, with our cloud hardware, as well as mainframe. So again, you can use this across the enterprise for all your deployments. This application here, actually, I think this was pulled out of a template. So we create what we call application templates, and all these processes came out of the template. So as I'm adding a new application into deploy, it's very easy to get started because I pulled all these various processes out of the template. So it's easy for me to get going. So in this case, it was a template for mainframe applications. And now I've got a quick start on my application, and I can build it from here. So that's a quick rundown of all the various capabilities of deploy. Let's switch over to my measure capability, or velocity. So I'm going to switch to a different environment here. This is data here is actually fake data, because to do a proper demo of a value stream map, I would actually have to have a development team around me working day to day to create this data, because this is all historical data. So Chris touched on this briefly, but I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into what a value stream map is here. So you'll see here that it's really the flow of work from idea through into production. And I do have a little slide that talks about how we do this. So within our velocity environment, we have what we call a data lake, and then we have plugins to all different tools. So it'd be great if everyone was using IBM tools, but we realize that a lot of customers have a variety of tools out there. So we want to be able to connect with all of those tools and pull the data from those and be able to link that data together. So we start off with a work item, and Chris showed that. He created a work item, and that item showed up in the backlog. And then it was selected for development. And then as a developer created some code against it, it showed up in my under review and then built and so on. And if we click on that, and I'm going to do that in a minute, you'll see that we are tracking that history when it moved between the different environments, what work was done against it, what code was put against it, what builds were done against it, what deployments were done against it, what tests were done against it. So all this information is aggregated on that little dot. And as it moves from left to right, it gathers all that information. And that's all pulled from within the DevOps platform or from other tools to build that information up. And in measure, we talk about value streams. I'll talk about pipelines in a minute. So that's how we can orchestrate out. So again, not only do we pull data in, but we also orchestrate out to other tools. So I can make a deployment happen, whether I'm talking to deploy or Jenkins or other tools. From my pipelines view, I can manage that. We have a release capability within Velocity. So again, I can manage all the tasks around a release, whether those are automated things that are happening in deploy or whatever, or maybe it's a manual task. So maybe there is a manual piece that we have to go through into the release. The release management helps me organize that and create basically a checklist. And some of those tasks can run parallel, they can run sequential, or whatever you want to do. Now, we also collect all this data, and this data is available to me in my insights view. So this allows me to see all kind of data, number of builds, number of deployments, pass, failed, all kind of things. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So let's go back to my Velocity environment here and drill into a little bit more what we see in this value stream. So all the bubbles represent stages in my value stream, and this is completely customizable. This is my inventory value stream. If I switch over to my accounting value stream, it looks a little bit different. And first of all, I was looking at my types in the other one, so I'll switch this one over to types as well. And just highlight here, I actually don't have to have them all connected with lines. This non-compliant bubble here, if I point to one of these, you'll see that it's actually pointing to the same work item. The idea here is that I want to highlight that this item has something special about it. And if I click on it, I can see that it went into the backlog, and the next thing it was in progress. So somebody jumped the selected for development stage. So maybe we're okay with that, but we should just be aware that we are skipping our process. So what's going on with that? Maybe I want to look at that. And I've got another non-compliant one here. And I think this one switched my dev environment. It jumped right into QA or something like that. So again, lots of information we can get from these. Let me go back to my inventory value stream here. Again, we're looking at these by task or by type. I can look at it by priority. I can look at it by release, and so on. So what's the view that you want to use to help you with understanding what you see here? The around the bubble is telling me whether it's going fast or slow. In my legend here, my in progress is a little bit slow. So we also look at this value stream over time. And this is where we get things like lead time and cycle time. So cycle time, and my definition here is cycle time is from in progress to production. So this is from a developer point of view, how long does it typically take when I pick this up, start working on it, till this gets me into production? So then from an IT point of view, I can understand what my typical time to get things into production is. My lead time, and this one is selected for development to production. This may be a little bit more on the business side. So I have a new idea. If I fast track that into selected for development, how long will it typically take before I can actually use that feature in production? So again, business or IT helps us understand how long things take to get through this. I've got a plain text search up here. I can say, oh, there's something about tax. Which one was it? There it is. Very easy to see. I've got 2 items in here that have tax in the title of it. This value stream, we can also filter it. We can set the timeline. So again, usually it's the last 30 days, but we can say, okay, stretch this over a little bit longer period. I can say, only show me my highest priority items here. I can filter by types, releases, sprints, and so on. And I also have a lot of metrics across the top here. And the metrics help me, again, understand what's going on. What's my build frequency, my deployment counts? We have some AI here. In this case, the AI isn't picking up any of my any information here. It needs a little bit more data, but it might identify things like a whole bunch of items were moved into selected for development at the same time. So that's going to skew my work a little bit, or the timings. So it's watching for various things, or maybe an item has been sitting in merge for too long. Now, there is a little red circle around this indicating that's been in that stage for longer than normal, but maybe we want to highlight that with some AI as well to say, hey, you got some items that are stuck here. Try to figure out what's going on with that. We recently added in some more AI capability in where we look at sprint risk estimate. So what the idea here is, instead of looking at burn down charts and trying to figure out if we're going to make the end of the sprint or not, let's have AI do that for me. So it uses a Monte Carlo analysis. It looks at all the different developers, how long they could typically take to do their work by story points and things like that. And it runs a simulation and it comes up with, okay, I estimate that you'll miss your sprint by 3 days. And my estimate on that is there's a 70% chance. So again, both telling me what the chance of me missing the sprint are, as well as how much I'm going to miss it by. So we can, again, earlier on in the sprint, we can start to say, hey, maybe we need some more resources on this to try to make this sprint. I don't want to miss my timelines on this. I'm going to keep an eye on the time here. Let me switch over. Swim lane view actually shows very much the same data, but just in swim lanes, I can also collapse these and expand these, so I can focus on different areas of it. And then I can look at it by owner, by priority, by type, by release, certain features. So again, lots of different ways to look at this data. And actually, there was one item there. We do have the concept of work in progress, where we're only supposed to have 5 items in the in progress stage, but we have 6 currently. In my swim lane, I see that Oscar has 2 items assigned to him. Maybe that's not a good idea. If we have a single item assigned to people, they get through it a lot faster. And I just want to pop back here and just talk about that aggregation of information. So as that dot moves from left to right, if I go all the way down to the bottom, I can see when it entered backlog, when it was selected for development, deployments that were done against it. And these are links back to the source of this. So if I click on this, it's going to take me to that deployment. If I click on this one, it's going to take me to Git to show me the code or to control. There was a build done. If I click on the build, it takes me over to the build information. Again, all this is my data with links back to the original one. Again, clicking here, this case is the Jira ticket. It takes me back to Jira. So all that information we pull in, but we maintain the links back to the source of the information. Let's switch over to my pipeline view here. And what the pipeline view helps me see is what versions of what applications are sitting in which environments. These could be microservices, these could be various applications that I tend to deploy together. Whatever it is, this allows me to visualize here what's going on and understand things about my various environments. Let me start with the green and reds here. So there's some indication here that green being good, red being bad, I've got a problem with this item in my QA environment. And this comes down to what we call gates. In this case, it's a prover gate that somebody has marked this as failing, but I can add other gates in. So I can say, I want a metric gate. So the metric gate is going to look at some of that data I've collected. So maybe I'll say unit tests, and I have a JUnit test here, and I can say the number of fails must be less than 10 or something like that. So allows me to create gates based on data. So it will automatically mark my build as pass or failed. I can do it by compliance gates. So I can say, okay, there must be at least more than one approver on each PR. Again, making sure we have a couple eyes on these things before we release them in. I can just look at the status of it. Again, lots of different ways to create gates so I can automatically tag my various items as pass or fail. You see here that build 48 and build 49 of account is not working well. So, but we've already done some initial tests on build 50, and so far it looks good. So let's get that one into my dev environment so I can start testing that better. So I'm going to just deploy that one. I'll hit deploy, and now it's gone off and it's running a deployment plan. And this will go out to the various tools, whether it's deploy or Jenkins or whatever, and it will call the appropriate job. So each one of these has a process or a job behind it that will do this deployment. I can actually click on that and it will take me over to that deployment plan, and actually it's already done. And if I go back here, It takes a minute to refresh, and now we see that we have build 50 sitting in my dev environment. So we'll run some quick tests on that. If we're happy with that, we will move it up to QA and so on. So again, from this view, by default, it picks up everything that's in the previous environment, but I can say, okay, I don't want all of those. I want this one and this one and this one. Again, selectively do what you want to do. We also have the concept of I don't see it showing up here, but we have the concept of a solution version. And the idea behind that is that I can pick a bunch of these and say, oh, these all work together. And I think I don't get solution version because I have what we call an API-driven application in here. But with a solution version, I can say, okay, these 4 I know work all together. So let's group them together, kind of like we have a concept of a snapshot and deploy. And I will move them as a group instead of having to pick individually. And this helps me make sure I don't click on the wrong buttons or pick the wrong version and deploy something into production that's wrong. Solution version moves as a group. The last part about my measure capabilities is all my dashboards. So these dashboards come from all this data that I have. You can inject your own data in. So Velocity has an API where I can inject custom data in. And we even have some business data here. So we can start to map some of my business data to what's going on in my production environment. I've got a bunch of incidents happening. Does that correlate to things going on the business side? So being able to map business to IT data really helps me understand what's going on and maybe streamline these things. I can do all these filtered by applications, by value streams, by teams. Helps me really compare teams together. These guys are doing stuff really well. Their cycle times are going down, and this team, their cycle times going up. What's going on with the 2 teams? Again, lots of different information there. One last thing I want to show you quickly is we also have some reports that we generate out of this. There it is. So this is a release readiness report. So again, based on all that information we pulled from other environments, first of all, we have an AI generated summary here. So it's looked at all the work items related to this and created a little bit of summary here. It tells me what are all the items in here. Looking at some of the quality reports, still some pipeline gates haven't been signed off on yet. So there's still some work to do there. And we have some high priority items sitting in QA. Maybe we want to delay this release and include these ones in as well. So up at the top, it gives me a readiness score. 53, not too good. I don't think we're quite ready to go yet. So again, these kind of things help us do a better job of understanding what's going on with our teams and help us deliver quality into our production environment. And with that, I think I'm going to stop here. And I don't think I've seen anything show up in the chat, but that is all we have so far.
Dan and Chris, thank you so much for taking us through all that. As you guys can see, we have a very powerful, very flexible platform from a DevOps tooling perspective. We'd love to keep this conversation going. We've got office hours that are starting in just over 5 minutes. Please feel free to jump on that, and most of the speakers from throughout the day will be on there live. You can come off of your mute and ask questions, have conversations, give feedback. Before you go, please take a minute to finish up the survey. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, how we can improve. We'd love to hear from you. Dan, Chris, thank you so much for taking us through that. And we'll talk to everyone here in about 7 minutes. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks.